This is Legislative Review on Prairie Public. I'm Dave Thompson. Thanks for tuning in today. We're getting down to the final few weeks of the legislative session, and there's going to be a lot of, shall we say, action in the Appropriations Committee. Here to join us is one of the members of the Appropriations Committee. He's Representative Ron Gugelsberg of Fargo, and he's a Democrat. Representative, thank you for being here.
Well, thanks for having me, Dave. And you're right, we're getting down to the end here, and things are starting to get exciting.
Is this your first session on appropriations?
Yes, this is my second session serving, my first term as a legislator, and first year on appropriations. So it's a lot to get your head around the first time around.
I've always wanted to ask, so I'm going to ask you, why do you want to be on appropriations?
I guess, in my other life, I'm a firefighter and I work for the city, and so you kind of get to know budgets and stuff that way. And so I kind of wanted to work with the money and the numbers, and it really interested me. But not only that, it just also the process. And it seems to me that a lot of times we like to look at the numbers and we say, well, how much did it go up from last year, down from last year? And not so much what did we do with the money and what were the results that came in the end. So just kind of looking at the process along with the numbers.
So as an appropriator, then you take a look at, what did happen to the money too.
Absolutely, yeah. So the first thing we always want to look at is what is the mission of this department or this thing we're funding, and then if we put money towards it, what is the end result going to be? And that's what I really enjoy about it.
One of the big issues, of course, that's before House appropriations right now is the higher education budget. You're from Fargo, that's a higher education community. I know that the budget has gone through some twists and turns, not only on the actual funding bill, but also the new funding formula bill. Mm-hmm. What's the status right now?
That's a good question. The status is interesting with the higher education budget. We haven't actually had the hearing in our full appropriations committee. The way it works in the House is there's 3 different subcommittees. So I'm on the government operations subcommittee. So we didn't do anything with it so far. I think tomorrow we'll end up working on the higher education budget. So we'll hear from that subcommittee what their recommendations are. I can tell you that it's changing hour by hour. Right now it looks like what they're going to propose to us would essentially be a $41 million cut to higher education, which, and some changes to the structure of the funding, which, I think the governor had a good plan, and the governor worked on this, and a lot of people worked on it from both parties to find a good new formula. And we're hearing from the presidents, if we just get this formula in place, you won't have to hear from us all the time about this institution's getting more and this one's getting shorted. And so I think it'd be a big mistake if we venture too far away from the governor's plan.
Now the formula we're talking about is a new concept that is based more on completed credits and less on people in the seats. That's simplifying it pretty much, but that seems to be the real direction here.
Right, and I think that's the direction we need to go. We need to fund things based on results. And so if it's students we're talking about, we want to know, are those students completing those classes? And if it's research they're doing, what kind of research and what kind of dollars are we getting back on that research?
There's been a lot of controversy from higher education. It's kind of followed because there are legislators who don't like the idea of the round table that gave up control and gave the colleges and universities more leeway based on some promises of getting some, outcome-based reports to the legislature, basically trust but verify in a way. Do you feel a lot of tension this year about from that perspective?
There's a lot of, the round table, that was before my time, but I think the idea of the round table and what it represents is a good idea. One of my new favorite sayings is, I heard somebody say this not too long ago, if you ever have a board meeting, there should only be 2 motions. The first is to fire the CEO, and the second, if that fails, the second is to adjourn. And so we need to let our people, and by people, our university and college presidents, do their job. As far as other things that are going on in higher ed, we've got a really good process in our higher education board. Are there some personalities that are conflicting right now? Yeah, absolutely, and I think they need to take care of that. But to change the process we have, I don't think that'd be a good idea.
So you support the idea of continuing the board as is, pretty much let the board govern then?
Let the board govern. And as far as the chancellor goes, I think the idea that the chancellor has is a good idea. I mean, I think when we go back to what universities and colleges and technical schools were meant for. I mean, your universities can be set up for research and for higher, doctorate and master's degrees, and the colleges, work on 4-year degrees, and so on and so on. That's where we want to go. Now, from what I hear, and I don't know the chancellor real well, but from what I hear, it's more of a personality issue with the chancellor probably. Maybe some more top-down leadership style that's not working well for the system. So the plan, the system is good. The plan seems good, and there just seems to be some personalities in the way. So I don't think we need to scrap the system just for the personalities.
But those are things that you could probably work on with the personality issues and how the board and the chancellor approach higher education, maybe.
Right, and if we have to change some people, we might have to change some people. But the system is the system, and I think we need to keep that.
I'd like to go to another thing that's really Fargo-centric, but it does affect a lot of people in the eastern part of North Dakota, and that's this whole diversion thing that was part of the Water Commission budget.
Mm-hmm.
As passed by the House, there were amendments put on the bill that said that Fargo could not spend any money to do anything like ring diking or property acquisition in anticipation of the diversion. Well, I guess the federal budget is out now,
Mm-hmm.
and right now there's $0 for diversion
Mm-hmm.
in the federal budget. Does that make
Mm-hmm.
it harder then to get that money restored?
Well, yeah, and so here's how all this stuff works together. The diversion. We need to have all 3 levels of government working on this, and Fargo and Cass County has made a commitment. We've gone to the voters twice now to ask for sales tax votes, and they overwhelmingly supported that. So Fargo and Cass County are in 100%. Everybody on the Cass County Commission, the cities of Fargo, Moorhead, West Fargo are on board, and then it came to the state, and the amendments you were talking about were very harmful, I'll say, to the process. We want to send a message to Washington that this is very important to us. When I go home on the weekends, I can't believe how many people that's all they want to talk about is, Representative Guggesberg, we need to get this funding in place, the diversion, because there isn't another plan. If we don't do the diversion, we can protect ourselves up to 42.5 feet. And if we lose at 42.5 feet, essentially the city's wiped out. I mean, the whole city's flooded almost. So we need to get the diversion done. As far as the federal funding goes, while we were disappointed that it wasn't included in the budget, I guess I wasn't too surprised. I mean, the president needed to send a message that he's serious about cutting spending. Now, Senator Heidkamp has talked to the White House, and they've said that the president still is in favor of the diversion project. And I can tell you from serving in the legislature, just because the governor has a budget doesn't mean that that's what it's going to look
True
like at the
enough.
end. So, and we've got, Senator Heidkamp's going to do what she can to get the funding replaced, and Senator Hoeven and Congressman Kramer have committed to that as well.
So are you feeling a little bit better about it being restored in the Senate and then maybe making it through conference committee?
Yes, it seems like the senators. So what happened was, it seems like when it was in the House, there was only, the group from the Upstream Coalition who were kind of opposing this, or wanted this language in the bill. And once it got over to the Senate, it seems like we've been doing a good job of educating them, and they understand that, you know, if they put this language in there, it will probably prevent any future funding or any work on it. If we remove it, it doesn't mean that, you know, the money will be, we're going to start in the middle of the diversion and start digging our way out. I mean, it'll be done carefully. In case the project doesn't go forward, that money won't be wasted.
Just so we're clear on this, we're talking about a multi-year project. It's going to take a while to get the diversion project completed.
Yeah, this is a long-term solution. And so the money that will be used that comes out of this session would be used to do a ring dike around Oxbow, number one. Number two, it would be used for some you know, dikes in the middle of town. And then they want to start a small project on the north of Fargo. So, and these projects all need to be done whether or not a diversion goes forward. So that's why it was important that, and I don't think they've acted on it yet, but it sounds like they're going to act on it soon, whether they remove those amendments or not. If those amendments are at least changed so we can use some of the funding for a diversion or the diversion project, at least we can get started on the things that we don't need to, aren't like I said, in the middle of the project.
There's the old saying, of course, that whiskey is for drinking, water is for fighting, and you've had the Fargo diversion amendments. You've also had the controversy in the Western Area Water Supply Project. That's out in the oil patch in that area. But your Appropriations Committee had to get involved in that too. So has that settled down at all, or do you think there's still some controversy about the WAS people versus the private water interests?
Yeah, and that is an interesting debate. And again, that went through a different subcommittee, so I didn't get to hear, you know, the extended testimony on it. But it basically comes down to, you know, who owns the water, and if we're going to have a public project, which WAS is, do we need to make sure it can pay for itself? And so, you know, it seems like it's moving forward. I like to see both groups talking to each other. That's a good thing to see, and I think you know, it isn't going to be resolved till the last days of the session, I'm sure. None of these big issues are. They never are.
That's right. The Senate just passed the House Bill 1319, which is the K through 12 funding formula, which is the governor's plan for property tax relief. They've made some changes, so that's going to end up in a conference committee. I guess that's still an Environment and Education subcommittee. We'll be looking at what they've done, make a recommendation to the floor. But you know, since that's the property tax relief vehicle, what are you hearing from your constituents about the issue of property tax relief, income tax relief, corporate tax relief? That's all on the table right now.
Yeah, and we were just told by our chairman today that we're basically $600 million in deficit right now. So, you know, and those are just numbers, and they move around quite a bit. And and I suppose the people that want to hear me say $600 million, that's just numbers. But, you know, we pass a lot of tax cuts, and we pass a lot of bills that have spending in them. And, you know, first the House has the bills, and then we flip them, and we get the Senate bills. And then once they go to conference committee, we call that the third half of the session. And that's when the negotiations really happen. So yeah, you look at the governor's budget, he had $800 million approximately in property tax cuts. And then, you know, at crossovers the next time we look at things. And, you know, Democrats, we wanted to increase that amount of property taxes maybe. And, you know, the governor was probably close where we needed to be if we were going to cut income and corporate taxes. But House Republicans instead decided to, I mean, I think it was $480 million was the increase in corporate and income tax cuts, and the increase in property tax cuts was $8 million. So I think Democrats, towards the end of the session, are going to be fighting for more property tax cuts for the residents, and if we have to pay for them somehow, maybe, you know, out-of-state corporations aren't going to get the tax cut they were hoping for.
Given the fact that, you know, the Democrats are in the minority, do you have allies in the majority party who would join with you saying, look, the voters sent us a clear message from Measure 2 last year. We want property tax relief?
Well, I think the same thing will probably happen as did with the attempt to cut the oil taxes. Eventually the public was just outraged. And I think as we get to the end of the session and they start seeing that, maybe property tax wasn't the focus of the Legislative Assembly, we're going to hear about it. And I think it's going to, not necessarily some Republicans are going to come our way, but I think the people are going to come our way, and they're going to come pounding on the door saying they want property tax relief.
I've been hearing a number of legislators are getting a lot of emails about property tax relief. You're getting email box full of those type of emails as well?
Yeah, we get a lot of emails about property tax relief, but we also get emails about all the needs in the state, especially people in the northwestern part of the state that are dealing with the effects of the oil boom up there. So that's the other side of it too. While we need property tax relief, we also have to be smart about our investments. And, if we can't call ourselves conservative when we only look at one side of it, and that's reducing taxes. We also need to invest in things like infrastructure and education for the future.
Now, since you talked about needs, Democrats held a news conference this week basically saying they don't agree with what happened in the Senate regarding some of the reductions in the aid to the Northwest and to the oil patch. That came through Representative Scarpel's bill. Came to the Senate, they reduced it with a promise that they were going to restore the cuts in other budgets. That hasn't happened yet. And now there's going to be a floor fight because in the Senate they have the ability to amend on the floor, so that there's going to be a floor fight on that. What do you think? Is that going to get back to Representative Scarpel's level, which was something about $300 million?
Well, I think if it doesn't get back to Representative Scarpel's level or the level that they need up there, there's going to be a lot of fighting on the floor, in the halls, everywhere. I mean, we need to make sure that people say that North Dakota is changing, and I think that North Dakota has changed. I mean, it's too late to stop what's happening. So we need to make sure that we're prepared to make sure that this change happen, we get some good things out of it in the end, and not just a little bit lower taxes, but we need to make sure that we're investing in infrastructure so we can also use that to diversify our economy. We can't just have roads to get to oil derricks. We also need roads to, for farmers to use, for people who recreate to use, and this is a great opportunity to build our infrastructure for the future.
And it sounds like, in your view, these things are not luxuries. They need to happen.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. Look around the rest of the country, the infrastructure is falling apart, and they don't know how they're going to fix it. We have the opportunity to fix it, and we have the need today, and so we just need to decide if we're going to make that a priority.
Since you're part of the Government Operations Subcommittee of Appropriations, I just wanted to ask a general question. What's been the most interesting or perhaps divisive bill that you've seen in the subcommittee?
In the subcommittee? Well, I don't know if it's the most interesting, but it just comes to mind because we're talking about it today. And that is how the legislature works in general. The fact that we have biennial sessions, that's been a topic that comes up quite a bit. And I don't think it would be a bad idea to go to annual sessions. I don't know exactly how you would structure them. The more I think about it, the more I think maybe South Dakota's onto something. They have 4-day sessions with 3 days off on the weekend, and then Friday they go home and they listen to their constituents. I find out here, we come out here for 4 months, we're locked in the Capitol building together with nothing but each other, lobbyists, special interest groups, and then after the 4 months we go home and then we hear from our constituents. So, the idea that we take more breaks, meet more often, and listen to the people more, I think is a good idea. But that's one of the things we were talking about today in our subcommittee.
Of course, South Dakota has an annual session. They have one longer session for budgets and one for, I think, budget corrections, if I'm not mistaken on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And Minnesota, of course, has annual sessions as well. We're one of the few states that goes with a biennial idea, and we're limited to 80 days.
Yeah, and it's interesting because most of the states that are biennial, they just call themselves into special sessions, so they're running all the time anyway. But yeah, I think with the growth of the economy in our state and with the diversity, maybe it's time to look at that.
Okay. I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about another interesting argument or tussle which could come up, and that's about the pay plan for state employees. The Senate plan was the governor's plan, 4 and 4, which is the equivalent of 4 and 4, with 1% going to retirement, and then some flexible language to get some money to special people who are below market values. And the House plan was 3 and 3. It did pass out of the House. Wanted to get your perspective from it because you do have a large state institution, NDSU in Fargo.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't believe we're even having this debate right now. You know, the governor came out with his budget, and it was 4 and 4 with the pension increases we promised the state employees last session. And so you got the governor on board, the Senate's on board, the House Democrats are on board. The only people who are fighting this thing is the House Republicans. And I think it's just one of their things that they think is a bargaining chip. I mean, the governor just sent out a press release last week. Last year, the median income went up in North Dakota by 12%. The average pay was $51,000 a year. Median pay was $51,000 a year. And now we're arguing over if we can give state employees a 4% pay raise this year. It's a discussion we shouldn't even be having, and I think it's just a negotiating chip.
And back on higher education, the governor, I had a chance to sit down with him this week, and he said that it looks like there's no defined pay plan for the college and university employees, the professors, and the other employees on the campus. Is that true, or is that being corrected now?
Well, I think that's, like I said earlier, it's just something that it's going through the negotiation process yet, and I think at the end of the day, we're going to do the right thing. I mean, any other business, if your business is doing well, you share a little bit of that with the employees. Now, our state employees have paid during the lean times. There were many years where they got no salary increases, and now we're doing well. We're losing a lot of employees, and we're asking a lot more of the employees that we do have. And I think it's time that we, at least let them keep enough money to buy groceries.
Another issue that kind of snuck up on us was, in the few minutes we have left, I want to talk about these voter issues that are out there.
Okay.
Especially the voter ID, which did pass and apparently is on its way to the governor now. How did you vote on that, and what is your feeling about the new voter ID requirements?
Well, generally speaking, I think that they're laws that are come from out-of-state groups. They're written, and they're nothing but voter suppression laws, and they want to the idea is to keep people who don't usually vote from getting involved in the process. I think they definitely affect low-income people and the elderly the worst, which is why it's so despicable to me. Is that you think of who wouldn't have a photo ID? It's probably going to be some elderly people who are living in a nursing home or that type of environment, and yeah, I voted against them. It looks like they're going to pass, unfortunately, and then we'll see what happens the next election. I like to listen to the experts, and in this case, the experts would be the county auditors, and they came in and said there's no problems. We don't have to change things. So I think things are okay, and these are just out-of-state interests coming in and trying to tell North Dakota how to run their politics.
So you think the argument that we're preserving the voter integrity, that doesn't hold water then?
No, I mean, they do study after study throughout the 50 states, and we always rank very high as far as the protection of our votes.
Okay, and with that, I'd like to thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Our guest today on Legislative Review, Representative Ron Gugelsberg from Fargo. He's a Democrat. He's on the House Appropriations Committee. For Prairie Public and Legislative Review, I'm Dave Thompson.